Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today we are talking Achilles tendinopathy. So what is Achilles tendinopathy? This is something that is typically misdiagnosed as Achilles tendinitis, so that pain right down in this area here when you're running, jumping, doing different impact activities that put excess stress through that Achilles. The reason we call it Achilles tendinopathy instead of tendinitis is the itis part implies that there is some sort of inflammation going on there. And unless there's inflammation or kind of heat right at that tendon, it's probably not the inflammatory component. It's probably more the tendinopathy, which suggests that there are different changes that are going on at the tendon that we need to address. So one of the things that I typically hear from my clients that they're doing is stretching this, and then the stretch feels good, and ultimately maybe it goes away short term, but then comes back a few weeks or a few months later, and you have the same exact issue going on. So there are things that we can do to work to improve the health of that tendon and ultimately get it feeling better and get it feeling stronger, so that when we are doing our running outside, our box jumps, are lots of double unders for our CrossFit folks, and maybe even trail running for our marathon and endurance athletes, we can work to improve the strength so that it doesn't bother us down the road. So what test can we do to figure out if one side is different than the other? One thing that I like to have my clients do is the single leg heel raise test. So in order to do that, we're going to go over to the wall here, okay? And with this, we're going to put our hands against the wall, but we're not pushing down on anything. This is more just for stability. So I'm standing on one leg here, and all I'm going to do is push up as high as I can and coming back down, okay? And I want to go up and down like this and try to get at least 25 reps. Okay, 25 reps is the norm here. As you're comparing it side to side, so you want to compare, I just do my right or I just do my left, you want to compare to the right side, all right? And ultimately, if you're feeling a difference between those two sides, that could indicate an issue going on at that Achilles tendon or at one of your plantar flexors here. So we have the big muscle here, the gastrocnemius, okay? And the little muscle here, which is the soleus, which is underneath, all right? And that can lead to some soreness in through here as well. What we can do to address these is put some load on that tendon, okay? So stretching is gonna give us a short-term effect. It might feel better, 30 seconds later, might even last the rest of that day potentially, but ultimately isn't going to do much for us unless we're stretching constantly all day long for several weeks at a time, okay? Which is just not feasible. So what we can do is we're gonna do a single leg heel raise, okay? To ultimately put some load through that tendon to help that healing. So again, we're coming over to the wall, and especially if this is rather painful, one of the things we can do is we press up with two legs, switch our weight over to that tendon that is bothering us, and drop back down on one. So we're coming up with two and lowering down with one, okay? Up with two, shifting over and lowering down with one. A progression that we can do there is using a plate or any elevated surface. A textbook would do just fine. Putting that down, pushing up with two and lowering all the way down with one, so we get a nice stretch off of that plate, okay? Up with two, lowering all the way down with one. What that helps us to do is put excess load through that tendon so that we can actually make positive changes there and help that healing process. So that addresses the muscles in through here. If we want to get right at that soleus muscle too, what we can do is we're going to bring this plate back over this way, put it over here, and we're going to grab a weight. Typically in the gym, I would suggest doing a little bit heavier weight, but if we have access to this at home, we got to work with what we have. So putting that on your knee, we're pushing up, and again lowering down, and allowing that heel to hang off the edge. That's putting load through that muscle in a lengthened position, which is going to allow us to slowly lower down and and load that muscle through a range of motion. Okay, up and down like that. This can also improve some of that joint mobility. Typically, I see that folks have tight ankles when they have issues with their Achilles. Sometimes that's before, sometimes after. Okay, those are two of my favorite exercises to give people who are dealing with some of that pain at the Achilles. Lots of other things that we can progress to, but ultimately, if we're having issues with running, jumping, double unders, or even just a lot of times people tell me getting up out of a chair, going up and down stairs, stuff like that. These are two intro movements that I typically give people to help improve the health of that tendon and get them on their way to recovery.